Let me show you several different ways how you can significantly increase the battery life on your Samsung Galaxy A16 5G. And by significantly, I mean you can easily get even 10 days of battery life from this phone if you aren't a power user. And actually, when we compare all phones, I think these Samsung budget phones get the best battery life in the market. First, we can disable all the unneeded connections that we do not actually use. For example, if you actually use all your mobile data and you do not use Wi-Fi, let's turn that off, because that simply drains quite a lot of battery, even if you aren't really using it. And same for Bluetooth. If you actually aren't using it all the time, I suggest you simply turn it off, as again, it scans in the background all the time and it consumes quite a lot of battery. And same for location as well. So by default, actually the location on these phones is always on to maybe help you find this phone if it ever gets lost. So that actually is quite kind of useful feature, but again it consumes significant amount of battery life. So if you actually use your maps, simply turn on your location when you actually need that. Again, absolutely huge battery drain here. Also, if we go to the settings and click the connections tab and click on more connection settings, we can also disable this nearby device scanning. So this again consumes quite a lot of battery, and 99% of people do not need this stuff really. So again, if you ever need it, simply go back and enable that. Then also, if you actually do not use NFC on contactless payments on this phone, if you have no use for it, simply disable it again. Then also the next huge thing on this phone that we can keep our eye on is actually all the background apps that are running in the background. So actually, when you simply minimize the app, it's not actually getting closed and it's still running a bit in the background and consumes battery life. So again, click these three lines here and simply swipe up and close all the apps that you actually do not need running in the background. Also, another thing which everyone should do is actually restarting your phone every few days. So actually, when you restart this phone, it will clear out a lot of background junk. Maybe also if your phone becomes sluggish from time to time, again, simply restart it and it pretty much will fix and clear everything in the background. And this again increases battery life and also the overall performance of this phone. Also, the A16 actually has a really decent screen as well, and also it's super smooth, but again it comes at a huge cost of battery life. When we go to the settings and click the display, click on motion smoothness, we can actually bring down the smoothness a bit on this phone, and that will basically significantly increase the battery life on this phone. So if we again switch to 60 Hz instead of the 90 Hz, so if you maybe take two phones side by side, you can probably see tiny bit difference in smoothness. But overall, I think the 60 Hz still is really good, and I'm not really seeing that huge of difference, if at any. And again, this setting actually saves quite a lot of battery. Next, what we can do, we can go to the settings, click on device care, and from here we can actually do a very basic housekeeping. For example, we can click on the memory. If you basically see it's fully used up, we can actually clean it and basically free up some memory, so from things that aren't really used much. And again, if your memory is almost full, this again will take a hit on your battery life, as your phone will struggle to keep up, and again it will consume more battery. Also the same thing for storage. Make sure you actually have a decent amount of storage available. If for example you have like 5 GB only left, then really try to maybe get some more space on this phone, because as the phones get very low on the storage, again they really struggle to keep up and do basic everyday tasks, and that again consumes quite a lot more battery. Also, in the same menu, we have this auto optimization feature as well, which again will basically restart your phone when needed, or basically every like a few days or every night. And basically we can click over here and restart on schedule or whatever, basically. So again, if you do not want to turn it off and on periodically from time to time, I really suggest this feature, because it will find a time when you aren't actually using your phone and it will do that housekeeping for you. Next, when we go back to the display settings, we can actually enable dark mode here as well on this phone. So that basically will turn off certain areas of the screen completely, and again that consumes way less battery. As you can see, when we enable the light mode, as you can see, a lot of light basically gets emitted from everywhere, and it's very like bright basically. But with this dark mode, pretty much like zero light gets emitted, and there again isn't much energy wasted. Again, this dark mode, as you can see, it pretty much turns off most of the areas. Well, they aren't completely off, they're still consuming tiny bit of battery, but as you can see, everything is pretty much dark, and again this basically emits way less light, and again way less energy consumption as well overall. The next thing you should probably do is actually determine if the 5G in your area is actually any good, and if you have actually good reception for the 5G. Because if you actually have very poor reception for the 5G, I really suggest to go to the settings, and in the settings go to the connections, click on mobile networks, network mode, and switch to the 4G. Because again, 4G usually gets much better signal, so again, very poor 5G coverage will drain absolutely huge amount of battery life. And also the speeds, when we compare, for example, a very good 4G connection versus a poor 5G connection, actually the speeds you'll get from the 4G will be much better, and they'll be also more stable. And when it comes to the battery life consumption on these phones, if you, for example, don't even use your data, you only use your Wi-Fi, then if you want to go absolutely extreme, maybe even suggest to like switch to 3G as well. Obviously, if you still have 3G in your area, because again, this usually gets even better coverage than even 4G, and again, it consumes even way less battery life. So again, 5G consumes crazy amount of battery life, even if you have good coverage, but in a very poor coverage, it will consume like astronomical amounts of battery life. 4G is much better in the battery consumption, and 3G is even better than the 4G. Also, if we actually compare the power consumption before mobile data and Wi-Fi internet access, the mobile data consumes probably like 5 times more energy to basically browse internet. So if you actually have Wi-Fi, do not use your mobile data, because that's absolutely huge battery drain. So again, if you have opportunity, really try to use Wi-Fi as much as possible on this phone. And then finally, actually your phone even has a dedicated power saving mode. So when we click and hold it, we can actually customize it a bit over here. So we can actually limit the CPU speed as well if you want to automatically, and also as you can see, it can do a lot of the things I already talked about previously. Also, in this power saving mode, if you actually click these 3 dots at the top and click adaptive power saving mode, I really suggest to turn this on, because it will basically determine when you are actually, for example, not heavily using your phone, or maybe you are simply not using it at all, and it will actually do a lot of these things automatically. But when you actually pick up your phone again, it will switch them off automatically, so you won't really see any performance hit whatsoever. So this is really good. And overall, I'm actually super impressed with the battery life on the Samsung A16. So the battery size itself is very huge on this phone, but also it's very power efficient as well. So as a total package, you can't really beat this phone. It's again one of the best phones there is on the market when it comes to the battery life. You can even get like 2 weeks of battery life again with very light usage of this phone. Absolute crazy phone. Anyway, good luck.